I never thought my own mother would humiliate me in front of 40 people at a restaurant, but there I was, 28 years old, watching her pull out a literal PowerPoint presentation titled Operation Get Sarah Married. My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm a software engineer living in Seattle. I've always been the independent one in my family, the one who moved across the country for college, who built a career I'm proud of, who bought my own condo at 26. I have friends, hobbies, a rescue dog named Pixel, and a life I genuinely love. The only thing I don't have, according to my family, is a husband. And apparently, that was about to become everyone's problem. My 28th birthday started like any other Saturday. I went for a morning run, grabbed coffee at my favorite cafe, and spent the afternoon working on a personal coding project. My mom had insisted on throwing me a birthday dinner at Romano's, this upscale Italian place downtown. Just family, she'd said. Nothing fancy, sweetie. Just us celebrating you. I should have known something was off when I arrived and saw not just my parents and my younger brother Kevin, but also my aunts, uncles, cousins, my grandmother, and even some family friends I hadn't seen in years. The private dining room was packed. There was a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Sarah," but underneath it, in smaller letters that made my stomach drop, it read, "Let's talk about your future." Surprise, my mom announced, her smile too wide, too bright. "We're all here because we love you, honey." I felt my throat tighten. My dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Kevin looked uncomfortable, picking at the tablecloth. My Aunt Linda was already crying, actually crying, like I had a terminal illness instead of just being single. The dinner started normally enough. Appetizers, small talk, the usual questions about work. I was just starting to relax, thinking maybe I'd misread the situation, when my mom stood up and clinked her glass. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice trembling with what I initially thought was emotion but soon realized was something else entirely, determination. "We're gathered today not just to celebrate Sarah's birthday, but to address something that's been weighing on all our hearts." My cousin Jessica whispered to her husband loud enough for me to hear. Finally, someone needed to say something. My mom continued, pulling out her phone and connecting it to a small projector I hadn't noticed before. "Sarah, honey, we love you. We really do. But we've been watching you waste your best years, and as your family, we can't just sit by anymore." The PowerPoint appeared on the wall. I'm not kidding, there were slides. The first one showed a graph of fertility declining with age, with my birth date marked in red. The second showed statistics about marriage rates. The third was titled, "Why Sarah is Still Single, a Family Analysis." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My face burned. Everyone was staring at me, some with pity, some with concern, a few with what looked like agreement. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor, to be literally anywhere else. "Now, we've identified several issues," my mom said, clicking to the next slide, which listed bullet points. "Too focused on career, intimidating to men. Too picky, doesn't make time for dating, needs to be more feminine." My grandmother nodded along. "You are such a pretty girl, Sarah." Before all the running and the short haircuts. I couldn't speak. My voice was trapped somewhere between my chest and my throat. I looked at my dad, silently begging him to stop this, but he just gave me this sad, apologetic look and said nothing. "We've taken the liberty of doing some research," my Aunt Linda chimed in, standing up like this was a business presentation. "And we've compiled a list of eligible men from our church, my book club, and even some dating apps we've been exploring on your behalf." She actually held up printed profiles. Printed. Dating. Profiles. "Richard here is a dentist, never married, very stable," she continued, pointing to a photo of a man who looked at least 45 and was holding a fish in every single picture. "And Marcus is a manager at Home Depot." Stop. The word finally came out, but it was barely a whisper. My mom either didn't hear me or chose to ignore it. "We know this might seem like tough love, but honey, you're 28. Your cousin Jessica was married at 23. Even Kevin has a girlfriend, and he's only 25. Kevin mumbled, "Mom, I don't think this is." "Kevin, not now." She cut him off. "Sarah, we just want you to be happy. To have a family. To not end up alone. I'm not alone, I managed to say, my voice shaking. I have friends, I have a life. But no husband, my grandmother interrupted. No children. What kind of life is that for a woman? The room murmured in agreement. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. So we've made a plan, my mom continued, clicking to another slide titled The 6-Month Marriage Mission. Starting tomorrow, you'll join our church's singles group. I'm not Christian, I said, louder this time. And we've scheduled you for a makeover consultation with Aunt Linda's stylist. We're also going to set you up on at least 2 dates per week. We've already reached out to several candidates on your behalf. My Uncle Tom raised his glass. To Sarah's future husband, whoever he may be. Half the room raised their glasses. The other half was looking at me with such pity that I wanted to scream. That's when something inside me snapped. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor.
No.
My mom blinked. Honey. No. I repeated, my voice stronger now. I'm not doing any of this. This is insane. I looked around the room, at all these people who supposedly loved me but were treating me like a broken thing that needed fixing. This is cruel. Sarah, we're trying to help you, my Aunt Linda said, her voice dripping with condescension. By humiliating me? By ambushing me at my own birthday dinner with a PowerPoint about how I'm defective because I'm not married? No one said defective. My mom protested weakly. You made a graph about my fertility. I shouted, and several people gasped like I'd said something obscene. You invited 40 people to tell me I'm not good enough as I am. That's not what this is. My dad finally spoke up. Then what is it, Dad? I turned to him, tears now streaming down my face. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my entire family thinks so little of me that you planned an intervention over me being single. Like it's an addiction or a disease. We just want you to be happy, my mom said, and she actually looked hurt, like I was the one being unreasonable. I am happy, I screamed, and the room went silent. I love my job. I love my life. I'm not lonely. I'm not desperate. I'm just living differently than you expected, and apparently, that's such a crime that you all decided to gang up on me and try to force me to conform. I grabbed my purse, my hands shaking. You know what? I'm done. With this dinner, with this intervention, with all of it. Sarah, sit down. My grandmother commanded in that voice that had always made me obey as a child. But I wasn't a child anymore.
No, Grandma.
I'm leaving. If you walk out that door, you're being selfish, my Aunt Linda called after me. We're only trying to help because we love you. I turned back, and I could see the shock on their faces at the anger in my eyes. If this is what your love looks like, I don't want it. I walked out of Romano's into the cool Seattle night, my whole body trembling. I made it to my car before I completely broke down, sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. My phone immediately started buzzing. Texts from my mom, my dad, cousins, everyone with opinions about how I'd overreacted, how I was being dramatic, how I owed them an apology for ruining the dinner they'd planned. I turned my phone off and just drove. I ended up at Cary Park, overlooking the city lights, trying to understand what had just happened. These were people who had watched me grow up, who had celebrated my achievements, who I thought knew me. And yet they'd decided that none of it mattered because I didn't have a ring on my finger. I stayed there for hours, crying and then just sitting in numb silence. When I finally turned my phone back on around midnight, I had 63 messages and 22 missed calls. Most were from family members, some apologizing, most doubling down. My mom's messages went from "please come back so we can talk" to "you embarrass me in front of everyone" to "I raised you better than this." My Aunt Linda sent me a long text about how I'd always been difficult and ungrateful. My grandmother's message simply said, "You've broken your mother's heart." But there was one message that stood out. It was from Kevin. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. That was messed up.
Can we talk?
There's something you should know." I called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. "Sarah, thank God. Are you okay?" "Not really," I said, my voice hoarse from crying. "Kevin, What the hell was that? He was quiet for a moment. Can I come over? I need to show you something. I think you deserve to know what's really going on. 20 minutes later, Kevin was sitting on my couch, looking more serious than I'd ever seen him. He pulled out his phone and handed it to me. Start with the family group chat, he said. The one they didn't include you in. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through messages that went back months. The group was called Fixing Sarah and included everyone who had been at the dinner except me. My mom. I'm really worried about her. She's going to end up alone. Aunt Linda. We need to be more direct. She's not getting any younger. My grandmother. In my day, a woman her age without prospects was a family shame. Uncle Tom. Maybe we should set up a surprise dinner? Get everyone together to talk sense into her. My dad. The one message from him in the entire thread. I don't know if this is the right approach. But then my mom. Dawn, you need to be on board with this. It's for her own good. I kept scrolling, feeling sicker with each message. They'd been planning this for months. They'd discussed my appearance, my personality, my problems. They'd analyzed my social media, looking for evidence of why I was still single. They'd even reached out to some of my ex-boyfriends for insights. But it was the messages from the last week that made everything click into place. My Aunt Linda. I saw photos from Sarah's hiking trip. She looked so happy. Maybe we're wrong about this. My mom. That's exactly the problem. She's too comfortable being alone. She doesn't even realize what she's missing. Cousin Jessica. My therapist said we shouldn't push people into relationships they don't want. My mom. Your therapist doesn't understand our family values. And then the message that explained everything. My mom. I ran into Margaret at the store today. She asked where Sarah was, if she'd be bringing someone to our Christmas party. I didn't know what to say. I felt so ashamed. Everyone else's children are settled down. What does it say about me as a mother that my daughter is still alone? I looked up at Kevin, understanding dawning. This wasn't about me at all. He shook his head. It's about mom's ego. About how your life choices make her look to her friends and the church community. I heard her on the phone with Grandma last month. She was crying about how people were starting to ask questions, making jokes about you being a career spinster. She's embarrassed Sarah. And instead of dealing with her own insecurity, she decided to make it your problem. That's sick, I whispered. There's more. Kevin took the phone back and pulled up another conversation. This is from the family book club group. Mom, Aunt Linda, Grandma, and some of their friends. The messages were even worse. They'd been gossiping about me for months, speculating about my sexuality, wondering if I had issues with men, discussing my weight, my clothes, my friends. One of my mom's friends had written, maybe she's just selfish. Some women these days think they don't need a man. My mom's response, she wasn't raised that way. I don't know where I went wrong. I felt something break inside me, but it wasn't sadness anymore. It was clarity. Kevin, I said slowly, did anyone at that dinner actually think this was a good idea? Or were they all just going along with Mom? He hesitated. Dad tried to talk her out of it. I told her it was crazy. Even Aunt Linda seemed uncomfortable with a PowerPoint, but Mom was insistent. She said if we all showed up and presented a united front, you'd have to listen. A united front, I repeated. Like I'm the enemy. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have warned you. I should have refused to come. I didn't think she'd actually go through with it. I looked at my little brother, who looked miserable and guilty, and I realized he was a victim of our mother's manipulation too. It's not your fault, Kev. Thank you for showing me this. After Kevin left, I stayed up all night reading through those messages, letting the full picture form. My mother had orchestrated a public humiliation campaign because she was embarrassed by my life choices. She'd rallied the family, exploited their love and concern for me, and twisted it into this intervention, not because she was worried about my happiness, but because my singleness reflected badly on her. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick to work. Not because I was physically ill, but because I needed time to process. I needed to figure out what I was going to do. My phone kept ringing. My mom called 6 times in 2 hours. I ignored every call. Instead, I started making a list of every time in my life my mother had prioritized appearances over my actual well-being. The time she'd force me to stay in ballet even though I hated it because the photos looked so nice. The time she told my high school boyfriend to break up with me because his family wasn't prestigious enough. The time she'd cried when I cut my hair short, saying I was ruining my beauty. It was always about how I made her look. I'd just never seen it so clearly before. Around noon, my dad showed up at my door. He looked awful, tired, older somehow. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I let him in but didn't offer him coffee or a seat. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. "Your mother is beside herself," he started. "She thinks you hate her." "Did you know about the group chat?" I asked. "The one called Fixing Sarah?" His face told me everything. He knew. "Dad, you watched them plan my humiliation for months and said nothing. You sat there last night and let it happen." I tried to talk her out of it. "Not hard enough." My voice cracked. "You're my father. You were supposed to protect me, even if that meant standing up to Mom. Instead, you just went along with it because it was easier." "It's not that simple," he said, rubbing his face. "Your mother, she's under a lot of pressure from her social circles. The church ladies, her friends, they all have married children, grandchildren. She feels left behind. So my life is supposed to revolve around making Mom feel better at her book club?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Do you hear how insane that sounds?" "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry, Dad. I'm done." I looked at him, this man who had been my hero when I was little, who used to take me to the park and teach me to code on his old computer. I'm done being the problem in our family just because I'm living my life on my own terms. I'm done being treated like a failure because I don't fit Mom's picture-perfect image of what I should be. "You're not a failure," he said weakly. "Then why didn't you say that last night?" I asked. "Why didn't you stand up and tell everyone that I'm not broken, that I don't need fixing? Why did you just sit there while 40 people tore me apart?" He had no answer. He just looked at me with sad eyes and said, "She's still your mother, Sarah." "And I'm still your daughter," I replied. But apparently, that wasn't enough. After my dad left, I made a decision. I sent one message to the family group chat, the main one that I was actually included in. "I need space. What happened at my birthday was unacceptable, and I'm not interested in discussing it or justifying my life choices. I'll reach out when, and if I'm ready. Do not contact me in the meantime." Then, I muted the conversation. The next few days were quiet. I went to work, came home, took care of Pixel, and tried to rebuild the sense of peace that had been shattered. My friends were incredible. When I finally told them what had happened, they were horrified and supportive in equal measure. My best friend Maya said, "You know what's funny? I've never once heard you complain about being single. You never seem unhappy or lonely. Your family invented a problem that doesn't exist." She was right. I'd been so caught up in their narrative that I'd started to question myself. But the truth was, I genuinely liked my life. I wasn't avoiding relationships. I'd dated, had a few serious boyfriends, and they just hadn't worked out. I wasn't against the idea of partnership. I just wasn't going to force it or settle for the wrong person just to check a box on someone else's timeline. About a week after the dinner, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Sarah Chen." A woman's voice, professional. "Yes, this is Patricia Romano, manager of Romano's restaurant. I'm calling because we've had a complaint filed against your party from last Saturday, and I wanted to reach out personally." My stomach dropped. "A complaint?"
Yes.
"Several other diners in nearby sections reported that they could hear your family's presentation through the walls and were very uncomfortable with the content. One couple was celebrating their anniversary and was quite disturbed by overhearing what they described as public shaming of a young woman. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "Oh no, dear, you're not in trouble," Patricia interrupted kindly. "I actually pulled the security footage because we wanted to assess if we needed to update our private room policies. I saw what happened. I saw you leave in tears. And I wanted you to know that I've banned the person who booked that room from hosting events at our establishment again. You banned my mother? I asked, incredulous. We have a strict policy against using our venue for harassment or public humiliation. What your family did crossed several lines. But I'm also calling because I wanted to tell you something.
She paused.
I'm 53 years old. I've been married, divorced, married again. And you know what? The happiest years of my life were when I was single in my 30s, building this restaurant, traveling, figuring out who I was. There's nothing wrong with you, Sarah. There's something wrong with people who think your worth is determined by your relationship status. I started crying, but this time they were good tears. Thank you. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. You take care of yourself. And if you ever want to come back to Romano's, dinner's on me. After I hung up, I felt something shift. Here was a complete stranger showing me more kindness and respect than my own family had. It put everything in perspective. That evening, Kevin texted me. You need to see this. Family meeting at Mom and Dad's. It didn't go well. He sent me a video he'd secretly recorded on his phone. I hesitated before watching it, but I pressed play. The video showed my mother, Aunt Linda, and my grandmother in the living room. My dad was there too, looking uncomfortable. My mom was in tears. I don't understand why she won't talk to me, she was saying. I'm her mother. I gave her everything. She's being incredibly selfish, Aunt Linda agreed. After all we did to try to help her. But then my dad spoke up, and his voice was different than I'd ever heard it. Firm, almost angry. Diane, you need to stop. My mom looked at him in shock.
Dawn.
You humiliated our daughter in front of 40 people. You made a PowerPoint presentation treating her like a business problem that needed solving. You didn't ask her if she was happy. You just decided she couldn't be because her life doesn't look like yours. I was trying to help. No, you weren't. My dad cut her off. Kevin showed me the group chat. The Fixing Sarah chat. I read every message. This wasn't about Sarah's happiness. This was about your embarrassment. About what your friends think. About your pride. My grandmother started to interject, but my dad held up his hand.
No, Mom.
You need to hear this too. Sarah is an incredible young woman. She has a career she loves, a home she bought herself, friends, interests. She's kind, smart, successful. And instead of being proud of her, you've all decided she's defective because she's not married by some arbitrary age you've set. Dawn, that's not fair. My mom tried. What's not fair is that I sat there and let you do this to her, my dad said, and his voice broke. I'm ashamed of myself for not stopping it. I'm ashamed that I cared more about keeping peace with you than protecting my own daughter. But I'm done with that. Done with what? My mom asked, her voice small. Done enabling your need to control Sarah's life. Done pretending that your obsession with appearances is normal or healthy. Done letting you hurt our children because you can't handle that they're not living the exact life you planned for them. The video ended, but Kevin sent another text. It got worse after that. Mom's been calling everyone who was at the dinner, trying to get them to agree with her that you're overreacting. But a lot of people are starting to realize how messed up it was. Cousin Jessica called Mom out for ignoring her therapist's advice. Uncle Tom said he felt manipulated into going along with something he wasn't comfortable with. The whole thing is falling apart. I sat there, staring at my phone, processing. My father had finally stood up for me. And more than that, the family was fracturing over what my mother had done. People were seeing through the manipulation. A few hours later, my dad called. I answered. Sarah, I know you said you wanted space, and I'll respect that, he said immediately. But I needed to tell you something.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I should have protected you, and I didn't. I was a coward, and you deserved better. Dad, my voice caught. You don't have to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I see what happened clearly now. And I'm going to do better. Your mother and I are going to therapy whether she likes it or not. And I'm not going to let her or anyone else in this family treat you like that again. Is she listening to you? I asked.
He sighed.
Not yet. She's still convinced she did nothing wrong, that everyone else is being too sensitive. But she's going to figure it out, even if I have to drag her to every therapy session kicking and screaming. Dad, I need you to understand something, I said carefully. I love you, but I can't have a relationship with Mom right now. Maybe not for a long time. What she did wasn't just about the dinner. It was years of putting her image before my feelings. And I need to protect myself. I understand, he said quietly. And I'll support whatever you need to do. You take all the time you need. Over the next few weeks, the fallout continued. I heard through Kevin that my mother had lost several friends over the incident. Apparently, Patricia Romano knew some of the same people my mom did, and word had gotten around about what had happened and why my mother had been banned from the restaurant. The whisper network that my mom had been so worried about was now talking about her, about how she'd treated her own daughter. My Aunt Linda sent me a surprisingly sincere apology, admitting that she'd gotten caught up in my mother's anxiety and hadn't stopped to think about how it would affect me. My grandmother, surprisingly, did not apologize, but she did call to tell me that she'd spoken firmly with my mother about boundaries. Coming from my grandmother, that was practically a declaration of war. The person I felt sorriest for was my dad. He'd been as much a victim of my mom's manipulation as I had, just in a different way. He'd been conditioned over decades of marriage to keep the peace, to go along, to not rock the boat. Breaking that pattern was clearly painful for him, but he was doing it. About a month after the dinner, I got a long email from my mother. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me open it. It started with justifications. The usual, I was only trying to help, and I'm your mother, I know what's best. But about halfway through, the tone changed. Your father showed me the video Kevin took. I watched myself. I heard what I said, how I said it. And Sarah, I saw your face when you realized what was happening. I saw the moment your heart broke. And I did that to you. I caused that pain because I was more concerned with what other people thought than with what you actually needed. I told myself it was love, but it was control. It was my ego. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing because you deserve to hear me say this. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. And I'm sorry. I read it 3 times, looking for the catch, the manipulation. But it seemed genuine. Later, my dad confirmed that he'd made her watch the video, made her read the group chat messages out loud, made her confront what she'd actually done. She cried for 2 days, he told me. Really cried, not the performative crying she does when she wants sympathy. She's in therapy twice a week now. She's got a long way to go, but Sarah, I think she might actually be starting to understand. I didn't respond to my mom's email right away. I wasn't ready, but I did save it. 3 months after my birthday dinner, I finally agreed to meet my mother for coffee. Just the 2 of us, in a neutral public place. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired. She'd lost weight. She didn't hug me when I arrived, didn't try to force intimacy I wasn't ready for. Thank you for meeting me, she said quietly. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before she spoke again. My therapist asked me why I needed you to be married so badly. I gave her all the reasons, wanting you to be happy, wanting you to have family, tradition, grandchildren. And she asked me to think about when I first started worrying about your single status. Do you know when it was? I shook my head. It was 3 years ago at church. Margaret, you remember Margaret, she's on the hospitality committee. She made a comment about how her daughter had just gotten engaged. Then she looked at me with this pitying expression and said, "Don't worry, I'm sure Sarah will find someone eventually." And I felt this wave of shame, like your singleness was a reflection of my failure as a mother. So you made it my problem, I said. Yes, she admitted. Instead of dealing with my own insecurity, I decided there must be something wrong with you. Because if it was your fault, then it wasn't mine. And over the years, that became this obsession. Every time someone asked about you, every time I saw a wedding announcement, it reinforced this narrative I'd built that you needed to be fixed. I was never broken, Mom. I know that now. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Sarah, you're extraordinary. You're everything I should have wanted for you, independent, successful, kind, strong. But instead of celebrating that, I tried to diminish it because it didn't fit the story I'd written in my head about what your life should look like. Why the PowerPoint? I asked. Why make it so public, so humiliating? She winced. I thought if everyone was there, if it was this big moment, you'd have to take it seriously. I thought I was staging an intervention like you'd see on TV, where everyone comes together to help someone who can't see they need help. I didn't understand that I was the one who couldn't see clearly. We talked for 2 hours. She didn't make excuses, didn't try to minimize what she'd done. She'd clearly been working on this in therapy, learning to take accountability. It wasn't enough to fix everything, but it was a start. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, I told her honestly. What you did really hurt me. It made me question everything, my choices, my worth, my place in the family.
I understand, she said.
And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for a chance to do better, to rebuild trust slowly, to show you through my actions, not just words, that I respect you and your choices. No more comments about my relationship status, I said firmly. No more hints about dating. No more concerned questions about whether I'm lonely. If and when I want to date, or get married, or have kids, or any of that, it's my choice, my timeline, not yours. Agreed, she said immediately. And no more group chats about me. No more family discussions about my life without me there. Kevin made me delete it, she admitted. The Fixing Sarah chat. He called me out in front of everyone, told them all how toxic it was. I was so angry at first, but he was right. I left that coffee shop feeling cautiously hopeful, but still guarded. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day, or even a month. But it was a start. The real turning point came 6 months after the dinner. I'd been dating someone casually, Marcus, a software developer I'd met at a tech conference. We'd been seeing each other for about 2 months, nothing serious, just enjoying each other's company. I mentioned him in passing during a family dinner, the first one I'd agreed to attend since my birthday, and I watched my mother's face carefully. She smiled and said, "That's nice, honey. I'm glad you're happy." And then she changed the subject to ask about my latest project at work. No probing questions. No wedding hints. No immediate assumptions about the future. Just genuine interest in my happiness, whatever form that took. After dinner, she pulled me aside. "I need you to know something. Even if you never date anyone again, even if you choose to be single forever, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the life you've built. And I'm sorry it took me so long to tell you that." I hugged her then, really hugged her, for the first time in months. My relationship with Marcus didn't last. We wanted different things, and we parted ways amicably after about 6 months. And you know what? When I told my family at the next dinner, my mom just said, "That's too bad. He seemed nice. Are you doing okay?" No disappointment. No "what went wrong" interrogation. Just concern for my feelings. It was a small moment, but it meant everything. A year after the birthday dinner from hell, my dad threw me a redo party. Just immediate family, him, Mom, Kevin, and Kevin's girlfriend. No PowerPoints. No interventions. Just pizza, cake, and bad karaoke. Better than last year? Kevin asked with a grin. Infinitely, I replied. My mom gave me a small gift, a framed photo of me from a hiking trip, looking genuinely happy, genuinely myself. On the back, she'd written, "To Sarah, who never needed fixing. I'm sorry it took me so long to see what was there all along. Love, Mom." I have that frame on my desk at work now. It reminds me that I get to define what success looks like for my life. That I'm not broken or incomplete just because I don't fit someone else's template. That the right people will love me as I am, not as they wish I would be. I'm 29 now. Still single.
Still happy.
Still building a life I love on my own terms. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. The people who truly love me, my dad, Kevin, my real friends, they celebrate that. They don't pity me or try to fix me. They just love me. And my mom? She's learning. Some days are better than others. Sometimes she still slips, makes a comment that reveals her old thinking. But she catches herself now. She apologizes. She tries. That's all I ever wanted, not perfection, just effort. Not agreement with all my choices, just respect for my right to make them. The birthday intervention was one of the worst nights of my life, but it also clarified something important. I'd rather be alone than spend my life trying to meet someone else's expectations of who I should be. And the beautiful irony? Once I stopped worrying about what everyone else thought, once I fully embraced my life as it was, I became happier than I'd ever been. Not because I met someone or got married or checked any boxes on anyone's timeline, but because I finally, truly accepted myself.